Thanks of the President to the American Newspaper Publishers Association, Waldorf Astoria Hotel, New York City, April 27, 1961.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate very much your generous invitation to be here tonight. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised.
Understanding words is what you really need to start doing. You need to start doing your homework and understanding words. If you put an S in front of words, it becomes swords. And that's what words are. They're cutting. They can cause you great trouble. Humans are word-controlled creatures. So we need to establish what words mean. Again, when we talk about law, there's a Roman maximum in law that says, "For he that would be deceived, let him." Simply meaning, if you are so ignorant as to be deceived, then that's your business, that's your problem. So you need to do your homework and find out what words mean, especially in relation to law and government. Because there is a world of occultism that is operating today throughout the world, in which you use certain words, and when those words are used in a court, they don't mean the same thing at all.
Young, old, all sorts. I mean, from across the entire community spectrum. Why are we all here? I think we're all here because we know on a fundamental level in our hearts that we have a right to peace and abundance, and we aren't getting this. It's like there's a big stink in the room, everyone can smell it, everyone's going, "Oh my God, who cut that one?" And there's a group of lawyers in the corner with nose plugs on saying, "Smells like roses to me." We know there's a big stink in the room. We know that they use words they will claim are our laws that have the force of law over us, and yet at the same time they will claim that we cannot possibly understand these words because we are not a lawyer. There's a guy by the name of David E. Sherman. He's one of the premier tax accountants, and if you look in Snafu and Google David E. Sherman, he's on the record as stating these detaxers think they know what they're talking about. They read something that looks like English, but it's not. It's law, and they can't understand it. I called them on that. I said, if they can't understand it, how is it constitutional to use this to create liability on them? Never heard back from them.
How did the American people lose the original constitutional republic?
Well, first of all, everybody thought we still had the same system of government that we always had, because they did the change so slowly and gradually.
From Vermont is recognized.
Mr. President, there is a war going on in this country, and I'm not referring to the war in Iraq or the war in Afghanistan. I'm talking about a war being waged by some of the wealthiest and most powerful people in this country against the working families of the United States of America, against the disappearing and shrinking middle class of our country. The reality is that many of the nation's billionaires are on the warpath. They want more, more, more. Their greed has no end, and apparently there is very little concern for our country or for the people of this country if it gets in the way of the accumulation of more and more wealth and more power.
As Agenda 21 became more and more apparent to me, I began using the line in Parliament that government
the third pyramid, and now we see the truth that the Nile Delta, as you see here, superimposed on the Ohio and Mississippi rivers, shows us the Nile Delta. This is unbelievable because when you zoom in, Cairo is where it ought to be. Cairo, Illinois, Memphis, Tennessee is where it ought to be. And right above Cairo, you see Markanda, which is where the two eclipses will cross at the center of the Nile Delta. The Star of Egypt. You can't make this up. You can't stretch this. There you see the Ohio rivers and Mississippi River forming the boundaries of the Delta, almost perfectly superimposed. This is unbelievable. This is why they chose America. Study this map in more detail as it overlays the United States and find other cities that match up with the Nile Delta. I can almost bet you this video will be censored. It will be shut down. It will be defunded because they don't want you to know the truth about this.
Giants in the land, and now we're having Hollywood just come out with movie after movie after movie trying to denigrate biblical Moses, it doesn't matter if it's Noah, trying to distort true history so they can insert their own history. For instance, in the movie Noah, this is pretty fascinating. Most people don't know this. The fallen angels are the good guys and Noah's the bad guy.
No, they're called the Watchers, aren't they?
Yes,
movie?
they are. They're called the Watchers. So
Another key temple site that I've investigated is Abydos, which is called the Gate to the Underworld. This is the Shrine of Osiris. Abydos, which looks like a modern corporate facility, is located where it is because of a former temple that once existed behind it called the Osirion. Researchers such as John Anthony West have examined the incredible 100-ton red granite blocks that we see here at the Osirion, and I have my picture here to reference the incredible size of these blocks. They've concluded that this is an example of a pre-flood temple.
What's interesting is that there was a huge satanic ritual that was performed on the very spot where Area 51 happened by this Jack Parsons, and in which they had this magical ceremony called Babylon Working, and it was designed by Aleister Crowley, who was a Satanist who called himself the B666.
Yes.
And the purpose of this series of magical ceremonies, which was performed on the spot of Area 51, where it's now located, was to unseal an interdimensional gateway, they said. And so in this, they hoped, would allow other entities known as the, quote, old ones, access to our space-time continuum. And this witness said that he saw Jack Parsons rip a hole in space-time there, and he said that something evil flew in. And one other interesting point is that Aleister Crowley, who was a Satanist, who called himself the B666, as I just mentioned, he claimed to have contact with some kind of alien named Lamb. And this Lamb, he drew a picture of this alien that he was in contact, receiving messages from this being. And the picture that he drew of this alien, it's a striking resemblance to the common gray ET drawing.
Because you have to be perfectly aware that we're asking you to do this. See, they just can't trick you. You get me? They just can't trick you and say, well, he don't know he's serving the devil, because the Lord won't honor it.
On June 29, 2008, an author by the name of Brandon Levon began posting on a site called Above Top Secret. Random things began to happen to him, such as his car getting towed off and searched, his computer stolen while he was gone, and after the release of his second book, his house was seized by the city and demolished. Many of his threads were removed from the site, and the last 2 posts were titled Info Warnings and Brandon Levon is no more. And what he has discovered is there is a pattern behind almost all religions around the world, no matter how far back you go, and they are based on the zodiac calendar. Each cycle of the earth is 26,000 years. These are then separated into 4 periods of 6,500 and are considered worlds by all ancient people. And each of these worlds has a creator, savior, and destroyer. The first age of the first world was the goat, the creator, and the archer, the savior, and the scorpion, the destroyer. It then starts again at the scale, creator, virgin, savior, then lion, destroyer. Please understand, this video is only a small fraction of the evidence these books contain. Let's begin. Kronos had 3 sons, Hades, Poseidon, and Zeus. And according to Plato's dialogues, each was allotted 1/3 of the earth. In the exact center of all the land masses of the world was put the marker that represented their rule over what would become the 3 races.
In 1877, author and theologian Joseph Seiss demonstrated that the Great Pyramid resides at the intersection of the longest line of latitude and the longest line of longitude, the exact center of all the landmass in the world.
This bloodline kept its status as gods by the knowing about or causing of a global catastrophe.
Power was not given. It had to be taken.
A Hebrew professor from the University of Johns Hopkins University, he found that 8 out of 10 Palestinians have the true Hebrew bloodline. 2 out of 10 do not. Those Palestinians are the real Jews. He found out 8 out of 10 in Israel do not have Hebrew blood in them. They invaded Israel in 1947, slaughtered 40,000 true Hebrews, and took the place over. Their flag flies the satanic emblem on it. Now, why is that?
So another interesting part of this, again, is the ancient astronomy. A lot of these megalithic sites, are aligned to astronomical precision points. So when we look at some of these cultures, the Egyptians and the Sumerians, and dive into this knowledge, the 12 houses of the zodiac, where does this information come from, and what does it actually mean? What was it being used for? What's the significance of this? One thing I would state is the Sumerians, as we'll talk about here, being the first civilized culture to show up, were the ones who actually were the first ones to denote 12 parts of the heavens and divide them into zodiacs. And the way this works was very simple. just like you would hear, we're in the age of Aquarius or in the age of Pisces. The way that would work was simply that right at the time of heliochal rising, which is when you go out early in the morning and the sun is just about to pop up over the horizon and it hasn't yet, and you can still see the stars against the backdrop of the sky. Well, what happens is when the sun starts to rise, if you can see, for instance, the constellation of Aquarius, whatever constellation the sun is rising in front of, you say, oh, we're in the age of Aquarius, we're in the age of Pisces. So it's a very interesting division of the heavens into 12 parts, but this knowledge is shown to have been held by high priests and courts from cultures, not just the Greeks and the Romans or the Egyptians, but it goes way all the way back into the Sumerians, as I'll show, having the first invention of this knowledge. But some of these cultures show knowledge of astronomy that it boggles, and it really is hard to put into perspective. The Egyptians, for instance, have not only a view of the 12 houses of the zodiac, or a divisional breakdown of the heavens, but they also took a much farther back view and had artifacts and replica elements that actually showed our position within the universe, where it wasn't just our solar system or our galaxy. It was a whole breakdown view, much larger out, which would show various other points in the universe. And these were inscribed on tablets and stones, where archaeologists have now broken down and visually found representations of the zodiac signs, but in a much more narrowed down view, where the view is in a much more expanded view of what they're explaining, and they've only identified the symbols that we know of in our zodiac, but it's a much more larger view that encompasses an astronomical layout that boggles modern archaeologists, and they really aren't able to accept a lot of the things that are presented, which we'll get into. So these artifacts still on display, and again, the archaeological community will accept the zodiacal symbols, but the large view of how they could have known the position in the universe or in our solar system really just kind of boggles modern science. So you can see various points of reference for these diagrams and the clarity of what they're showing. This is one zodiacal set, just like it would be changing in a calendar. So again, the division of the heavens into 12 parts, a very interesting number, 12. Why 12? Where does this information come from? And as we'll see, the number 12 is a very pivotal number of information stemming from the Sumerian culture. Now, this is a Sumerian tablet that's roughly 4,500 years old, and you can see that it has symbols representing like the scorpion, and you can see the turtle there and various other symbols that are known to be astronomical symbols. The turtle isn't one, but various astronomical data coming out of the Sumerian culture, where this was the earliest known sources of this information. So another interesting
From top again. Say from top. From top. Amen.
In the Northern Hemisphere during late December, the days are at their shortest lengths and the nights are at their longest. For those of the pagan world, this has always been the greatest time of the year to celebrate and practice the works of darkness. The pagan calendar identifies this period as the winter solstice. It was during the pre-Christian midwinter pagan celebrations of Scandinavia's Norsemen where today's Christmas traditions began. As a means of honoring the pagan sex and fertility god Yule, a 12-day celebration during the month of December was inaugurated. A large single log considered to be a phallic idol was lit on fire and kept burning for 12 days. Animal or human sacrifices were offered in the fire on each of those days. Wild, delirious reveling accompanied the daily sacrifices as drunken participants defiantly strove to make contact with spirits. 1,000 miles away in pre-Christian Rome, celebrants were paying homage to their own gods during the winter solstice. Witchcraft traditions hold that a number of pagan gods were given birth during this period, including Dionysus, Attis, and Baal, chief male god of fertility and licentiousness. Another pagan god from Persia, identified as Mithra, was said to have been born specifically on December 25th. Mithra was the god of the unconquerable sun, the god of the light between heaven and earth, worshipped at that time by an influential Roman cult. His birth symbolized an end to the long nights and a return to the dominance of the sun. During the month-long winter solstice celebration, courts in Rome were closed. Any and all crimes were allowed. Homosexuality, cross-dressing, and uncontrolled debauchery reigned supreme. Rome's order was turned upside down. Even children were allowed to join in the drunken orgies as part of the Juvenalia celebration. By 270 AD, the Roman Emperor Aurelian had made it official, setting aside a 7-day period from December the 17th through the 24th, culminating in an exchange of gifts on December the 25th to celebrate the birth of the sun god. This Roman orgy to end all orgies later became known as Saturnalia, in honor of the god Saturn, the god of excess. Roman soldiers invading Britain brought with them their pagan orgiastic traditions. Upon taking root in England, Saturnalia became known as the Festival of Fools, reigned over by the Lord of Misrule.
As what was happening in America. So David started Can-Am Missing, a group of retired police officers, search and rescue experts, and other professionals who are trying to get a grip on how and why thousands, not hundreds, thousands of people have gone missing, most never to be seen again.
Almost, right? Even the toilet looks like antique.
So has power and everything. Oh my god. It's from 2016?
Dude, there's like multiple like
I'm like, this bathroom. Just turned the power on so we could see.
Dude, there's still like mouthwash, like.
Dude, I think if you were just foreclosed on, you know, they just kind of got kicked right out. It's crazy, man. Mirror. Wow. Just turned on the liquor cabinet. Dude, was that a Chick-fil-A?
With the dailies?
What the hell? No,
It was like minis.
Dude, someone's liquor cabinet.
Look at that. That's like solidified. That's like not even alcohol.